Saudi reporting says a number of Al-Nassr's players didn't get their full June wage. Now, before you panic, we're not saying Ronaldo's currently checking down the back of the sofa for loose reels. There's no evidence he's one of them. But this is a club that's 75% owned by a fund managing over $900 billion. $900 billion. That's not a typo. And the same reporting says the club couldn't prove it could afford its next signing. So, somewhere between we manage nearly $1 trillion and sorry, can't sign anyone right now, something doesn't add up. Figuring out what is a far better story than just shouting Al Nassr are broke, because they're probably not. This is weirder than that. But to understand how this is even possible, you first have to separate the owner's fortune from the club's actual money. Here's what actually happened. According to one Saudi outlet, Al-Riyadiyah, over 4 increasingly dramatic days in July. Day 1, players reportedly got partial June wages, and the move for a Brozović replacement stalled because of, quote, weak liquidity, which is a brilliant phrase because it sounds like something out of a hostage negotiation. Day 2, a follow-up claiming that the club's obligations had outgrown its revenue, and it hadn't proven it could afford new deals. Day 3, 2 days later, and still no sign of approval from Saudi football's Financial Oversight Committee for a new foreign signing. 3 headlines, one outlet, anonymous sources every time. Al Riyadiyah says it's tried getting a straight answer from the club's decision makers and received no clarification, which, if you've ever tried getting a straight answer out of any football club about money, will not shock you in the slightest. And this wasn't even the first hint of trouble. Back in June, the same publication said most of the squad hadn't received their title winning bonuses either, though a few foreign players had contracts with automatic payment clauses. Convenient, that. Because the most important claim here was never that the PIF stopped funding Al Nassr, it's that the club's own existing obligations may already have outgrown what it earns. Here's the bit almost nobody explains properly, because it's actually the funniest part of the entire story once you get it. You've probably done this yourself. Opened your banking app, seen that your net worth is looking healthy because your pension's stacked up nicely, then got your card declined buying a round at the bar because none of that money is actually sitting in your current account. Same problem, just with 9 extra zeros. PIF's $913 billion is spread across golf courses, hotels, mining companies, tech startups, half of Newcastle, sorry, wrong club. The point is, it's everywhere except sitting neatly in Al Nassr's own bank account, ready to spend on transfer day. There are 4 completely different pots of money getting confused here. What PIF owns overall, what Al Nassr's actually been authorised to spend, what cash the club can genuinely get its hands on right now, and whether anyone's actually said yes to spending any money on a new player at all. A wealthy owner is not the same thing as an unlimited club bank account. Even the richest owner in world football still needs someone to say, go on then, before he can sign the cheque. But here's the bit that reporters keep burying. The money Al Nassr were owed from PIF and the league, they got that fine, according to the reporting. The actual problem was that the club had already promised to spend elsewhere. Old contracts, old bonuses, old deals, which had piled up higher than what the club earns in a year. That's not the owner stopped paying. That's the club's been writing checks it can't quite cash yet. A much less dramatic problem than a financial crisis headline, and a much more common one than you'd think, even at clubs backed by $900 billion funds. And even if the club finds the money, that still doesn't mean it's allowed to create another contract. So, who's the actual killjoy saying no? Since last July, there's a body called the Financial Oversight Committee, run by the Saudi Pro League itself, whose entire job is basically being the responsible adult at the party, checking whether a club can actually afford whatever it's about to buy before it's allowed to buy it. The league has ploughed over $1.5 billion into itself since 2023, and the price of that is just tighter rules. No more just turning up with a checkbook and vibes. According to the reporting, Al Nassr hasn't yet cleared that bar for a new signing. And a transfer isn't just the headline fee anyway. It's wages, bonuses, agent fees, image rights, years of future payments, all bundled together. So the committee isn't just checking can you afford the sticker price, It's checking can you afford everything that sticker price actually drags behind it. That may look like a transfer ban from the outside, but the distinction matters. Now, important bit. This isn't a transfer ban. Nobody has slapped Al-Nassr with an official punishment. What's being described is much more boring. In the best way, incoming deals reportedly on ice while the club proves it can afford them. Not banned, grounded. Maybe, until it tidies its room. And here's the proof that it's not a total freeze. While Al-Nassr apparently can't buy anyone, they can still sell. The chief executive gave the green light for Jhon Durán to find a new club. According to the reporting, with a loan deal to Benfica said to be closing in, the Portuguese side covering only part of his salary. Makes perfect sense once you think about it. Getting rid of a big salary frees up room. Adding a new one does the opposite. So a club can look skint on the incoming side and perfectly busy on the outgoing side at exactly the same time. Not a contradiction, just two different doors. Which leaves Ange Postecoglou in a slightly strange spot. The club can appoint its new manager, but reportedly can't yet deliver the squad change that he actually wants. And speaking of doors, Al-Nassr just walked a new manager through one. Ange Postecoglou signed a 2-year deal, which is not exactly the move of a club that's completely broke. So, whatever's going on here, it's not the lights are off, nobody's home. So why appoint a manager, but reportedly still not fund his squad? Here's the awkward part. New manager, new job, and reportedly still no midfielder to replace Brozović right as pre-season kicks off. Which is a bit like being handed the keys to a restaurant and told that the kitchen's fully staffed, only to find out that half the chefs haven't actually been hired yet. And this isn't even the first time this exact tension's shown up. Ronaldo himself was reportedly grumbling back in February about the level of transfer backing he was getting. At the time, the league basically said every club plays by the same sustainability rules, Cristiano, which, looking at it now, reads less like a brush off and more like an early warning shot. And Al-Nassr may be the first visible sign of a much wider change in Saudi football. So, is Al-Nassr just one unlucky club? Or is something bigger going on? Zoom out, and Al-Nassr might be just the opening scene of a much bigger plot. Saudi football's first act was a pure shopping spree. Ronaldo rocks up in December 2022, and suddenly every club in the league signing players on wages that make European clubs wince. Since then, the league's been quietly growing up. Tighter oversight, more private money coming in to share the risk PIF used to carry entirely on its own. Kingdom Holding bought 70% of Al-Hilal this year for around $373 million, which is PIF essentially saying someone else can worry about this one for a while. Put it together, and it looks like Saudi football's moving from buy absolutely everything to actually check the numbers first. That's a theory, not a fact carved in stone, but it's a theory that fits everything we've just walked through. But financial discipline only becomes a crisis if the reported payments remain unresolved. It's worth knowing what actually happens if any of this drags on unresolved. FIFA's rules let a player walk away from his contract if he's owed 2 full months' wages and the club doesn't sort it out after a formal warning. Nothing reported so far says Al-Nassr are anywhere near that line. No default notice, no legal case, nobody's actually walked. This is the what if it gets worse section, not the here's what's happening right now section, which brings the story back to the question PAF's balance sheet can't answer. So here's where we actually land. The money hasn't vanished. PIF is still one of the biggest investment funds on the planet, quietly buying half of everything, apparently including bits of the northeast of England. But being rich and being liquid are not the same thing, and neither of those is the same thing as being allowed to spend. Every wage and approval claim in this story still traces back to one outlet, using anonymous sources. Nobody official at Al-Nassr, the league, or the PIF has confirmed a word of it. But if even Ronaldo's own club has to prove it can afford its next signing, has the blank cheque era of Saudi football quietly ended? Not because the money ran out, but because for the first time, somebody's actually double checking the maths before it gets spent. So here's the actual debate. Is Al-Nassr quietly struggling, or is this just what growing up looks like for a club that used to spend like the bill would never arrive? Comment below and tell me which one you reckon it is. Because right now, even the people covering this in Saudi Arabia don't seem to agree with each other. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It really helps this reach the right audience. Subscribe to Sports Cash Files. Every week, we look into the money behind the sport. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.